The wind howled across the jagged peaks of Mount Calares, its icy fingers clawing at the young woman bound to the stone altar. Her name was Lyra, and she was the last of the Calares bloodline, a family of interstellar traders who had once been revered across the galaxy. But now, she was nothing more than a sacrifice, chained to the mountain by her own kin, left to die as an offering to the ancient entity known as the Void Wraith. The chains around her wrists and ankles were cold, their metallic bite a cruel reminder of her family's betrayal. Lyra's violet eyes, a genetic trait of her lineage, scanned the horizon as the twin suns dipped below the mountains, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape. She had been here for 3 days, her body weakening under the relentless cold and hunger. Her family had left her with nothing but the tattered remains of her ceremonial robes and the faint hope that the Void Wraith would accept her sacrifice and spare their failing empire. But Lyra refused to die quietly. She had spent her life studying the ancient texts of her people, learning of the Void Wraith's origins and the true nature of its power. She knew it was not a god, but a being of immense energy, a remnant of a long-forgotten civilization that had been imprisoned within the mountain eons ago. Her family's fear had blinded them to the truth, but Lyra had always been different. She had always questioned, always sought to understand. As the stars began to pierce the darkening sky, Lyra heard the faint hum of an approaching ship. Her heart leapt, but she quickly tempered her hope. It could be scavengers, or worse, her family returning to ensure her death. But as the ship descended, its sleek, angular design marked it as something else entirely. It was a human vessel. The ship landed a short distance away, its engines kicking up a cloud of dust and snow. The hatch opened, and a single figure emerged, clad in a rugged exosuit. He moved with purpose, his steps steady despite the treacherous terrain. As he drew closer, Lyra could see his face through the visor of his helmet. He was human, his features sharp and determined, his eyes a piercing blue. "You're not supposed to be here," Lyra said, her voice hoarse from days of disuse. The man stopped a few feet away, his gaze sweeping over her chained form. "Neither are you," he replied, his voice calm but laced with concern. "Name's Yerrick. I'm with the Galactic Relief Corps. We picked up a distress signal from this sector." Lyra shook her head. "It wasn't me. My family. They left me here to die." Jarrick's expression hardened. "Why?" "They believe the Void Wraith will spare our empire if it consumes me," Lyra explained, her voice bitter. "But they're wrong. The Void Wraith isn't a god. It's a prisoner just like me." Yerrick knelt beside her, examining the chains. "Hold still," he said, pulling a plasma cutter from his belt. The tool hissed as it sliced through the thick metal, freeing Lyra's wrists and ankles. She collapsed into his arms, her body trembling from exhaustion. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Yerrick helped her to her feet, supporting her as they made their way to his ship. "We need to get you out of here," he said. "This place isn't safe." But as they approached the ship, the ground beneath them began to tremble. A low, resonant hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "It's too late," she said. "The Void Wraith, it's awake." The mountain erupted in a burst of light, a massive energy beam shooting into the sky. The beam coalesced into a swirling vortex, and from it emerged the Void Wraith. It was a being of pure energy, its form shifting and writhing like a living storm. Its eyes, if they could be called that, glowed with an otherworldly light, fixed on Lyra and Yerrick. Yerrick drew his sidearm, a high-energy pulse pistol, and fired at the entity. The shots passed harmlessly through its form, dissipating into nothingness. The Void Wraith let out a deafening roar, its voice a cacophony of screams and whispers. "We need to run," Yerrick shouted, pulling Lyra towards the ship. But Lyra resisted. "No," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I can stop it." Yerrick stared at her in disbelief. "Ow!" "The ancient texts," Lyra explained quickly. "They speak of a ritual, a way to bind the void wraith back to its prison. But I need to reach the summit." Yerrick hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but we do this together." They raced up the mountain, the void wraith close behind. The entity lashed out with tendrils of energy, each strike narrowly missing them as they dodged and weaved through the rocky terrain. Lyra's strength was fading, but Jarrick's determination kept her moving. Finally, they reached the summit, a flat plateau surrounded by ancient stone pillars. In the center was a large, circular platform etched with intricate runes. Lyra recognized them immediately. "This is it," she said, stepping onto the platform. "I need to activate the ritual." Yerrick stood guard, his pistol at the ready as the void wraith descended upon them. The entity's form shifted, its energy coalescing into a massive, clawed hand that reached for Lyra. "Hurry!" Yerrick shouted, firing at the hand in a desperate attempt to slow it down. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing on the ancient words she had memorized from the texts. She began to chant, her voice rising above the howling wind. The runes on the platform glowed with a soft, blue light, growing brighter with each word. The void wraith let out a deafening scream, its form flickering as the ritual took hold. The energy beam from the mountain shifted, turning from a chaotic vortex into a focused stream that flowed back into the platform. The void wraith struggled, its form writhing as it was pulled back into its prison. But the ritual was taking its toll on Lyra. Her body trembled, her strength fading as the energy flowed through her. Yerrick rushed to her side, catching her as she collapsed. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with awe. Lyra smiled weakly. "We did it." The void wraith let out one final, anguished cry before it was fully absorbed into the platform. The mountain fell silent, the energy beam dissipating into the night sky. The runes on the platform dimmed, their power spent. Yerrick helped Lyra to her feet, supporting her as they made their way back to the ship. "You're safe now," he said. "Your family, they won't hurt you again." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Yerrick, for everything." As they boarded the ship and lifted off, Lyra looked down at the mountain, now just a shadow against the starry sky. She had been chained to it, a sacrifice to a false god. But now, she was free, and the galaxy was a little safer because of it. And as the ship soared into the stars, Lyra knew that her journey was just beginning. With Yerrick by her side, she would uncover the secrets of her people, and perhaps find a new purpose among the stars.